Hello, and welcome to the Parent Information Center of Delaware's webinar on effective advocacy skills. This webinar will take about 30 minutes to review. PIC has partnered in the FOST project to present this curriculum, which was developed by PACER, the Parent Center in Minneapolis. Before we begin, I would like to give you an overview of PIC and our work. We were established 30 years ago. We are a nonprofit organization which provides tools for parents, caregivers, and advocates of children to secure appropriate education and related services. We are the authority on effective parent engagement in schools, and we empower parents to become their child's best lifelong advocate. And this webinar is going to provide you with some essential tools to be able to become your child's best lifelong advocate. Our mission is to advance effective parent engagement in education. Here are some of our services for parents and professionals. We provide one-on-one consultations where you can call and speak to one of our parent consultants to receive private information about your child's education, your rights, and some options that you have. We also provide learning opportunities such as this webinar in addition to workshops, audio conferences, and an annual Family Leadership Academy. We have multiple online resources via our website. We have a weekly e-news which connects to thousands of parents, caregivers, and professionals. We do go and provide outreach to underserved families of children with disabilities, and work on systems advocacy to ensure the interests of children with disabilities both at local and national levels. Today we will talk about advocacy, which is speaking up for yourself and others. We'll learn about the skills that you need to be an effective advocate. Also, we'll talk about specific ways you can make a difference. Our hope is that you will find one or more skills you can use to become a more effective advocate. An advocate can be broadly defined as someone who speaks up to make things better. Advocates can speak up for themselves or others. Each of you has already been an advocate. You may not have attached that label to your actions. Advocacy covers a very broad range of activities that just about everyone in many settings does every day. You advocate for yourself and you advocate for others. As a parent of a child, you've already had to speak on behalf of your child. You may have spoken to a teacher, daycare worker, a doctor, a nurse, and during that time you have been advocating on behalf of your child. When we say advocate here, we don't mean a legal representative. It is a more broad definition. You should practice using this phrase, I am an advocate for my child. It has influence in the education world. Alice Walker, born in 1944, is an author and poet. She's written at length on issues of race and gender and is very famous for her novel, The Color Purple. Alice says, the most common way people give up their power is thinking they don't have any. We hope to help you realize that you do have power and can be an effective advocate for your child. We will help you learn more skills to do this. All of your children may need you to advocate for them at different times and places in their lives, but your child with a disability may need more help for a longer time. You may not find it easy to be an advocate, but it's very important and you can do it. In fact, you are often the only one who can. You don't need to feel frustrated or powerless about your child's issues. You can use the power you have for effective advocacy for your child with a disability. Throughout this webinar, when we refer to parent, we mean a biological or adoptive parent of a child, a guardian who's authorized to act as the child's parent, or authorized to make educational decisions for the child. So this includes grandparents and educational surrogate parents, for example. Parents bring their own experience with their child to the table. Parents are the experts about their child. Professionals have knowledge and expertise in a specific area, but they're only a temporary part of your child's life. Professionals will pass in and out of your child's life, but you will always be the parent. Professionals also deal with many children, but you only have your child to think about. A child is served best if parents and professionals work together. No one cares about your child as much as you do, and you must speak up to make sure that your child becomes as independent, productive, and happy as he or she can be. Here are some things that make you as a parent a powerful advocate for your child. The 6 skills today are understanding your key players, knowing your rights and abilities, becoming well organized, clear and effective communication, and knowing how to resolve disagreements. I encourage you to look at this list and think about, what's my strongest area? What's my weakest area? Which areas could I be more effective in? And then concentrate on building on those areas that you're strong at and working on those areas that you need to be more effective at. Advocacy is much more important than playing a game for recreation, but you can use this as parallel to help you think about the skills that you need. Imagine you're playing a board game or a card game. Games have rules. The players need to know those rules to play the game. Beyond knowing the rules, players also need people skills, such as taking turns, concentrating, making conversation, managing their emotions, using a strategy to play the game. Of course, the Social Security program, your doctor's office, your child's special education program are not games, but they do have rules, and they also require people skills and the skill to resolve a disagreement. Knowing the rules of the game or process will help you be an effective advocate for your child. So another way of looking at these 6 skills are knowing who the players. What's my plan of action? What do I say when it's my turn? And what do we do when we disagree? And we will give you tips on each one of these skills. I would like to emphasize number 4, what's my plan of action? The important here is action. It's important to have a sense of urgency when you deal with the school system. Set deadlines and be sure that the school doesn't act in undue delays. Let's look at the first skill, understanding your child's strengths, weaknesses, and disability. Your child's strengths are the things that you can build on to learn new skills. Their weaknesses are stated in terms of their educational needs in their IEP. Based on these needs, goals can be developed and measured. Your child's disability could explain some of their learning difficulties and learning styles. Not all educators will be familiar with your child's disability and how that disability affects your particular child as an individual. Understanding these things helps you know what academic areas to focus on, know what services and supports are useful for your child. It helps you have high expectations for your child, and it helps you know your learning style and their non-academic skills. You do want to use as many resources as you can to learn more about your child and about their strengths and weaknesses. Get to know some other people with the same disability as your child if you can. Join support groups, use websites. Look at school choices, and don't assume that just because you know about that school 3 or 4 years ago that it's going to be the same atmosphere and the same school. The atmosphere changes in schools, and it's important to keep up with what your real choices are and what the atmosphere in that school is at the time when your child is ready to go to that school. Certainly use the Parent Information Center. We are very happy to help you on an individual basis. Use the school and district websites. Also, you will want to get used to using the term disability. The law provides a free, appropriate public education for your child based on their disability. You need to use the words that are used in the game that you're playing. And you need to be able to explain, why does this disability cause this child to need special education services? The second skill is knowing the key players. Why is this important? In order to influence someone to make a change you think is necessary for your child, you need to know who to talk to. You need to know who actually has the authority to make decisions and changes. As part of your IEP team, you'll have an administrator, and the purpose of that administrator is that that person has the authority to approve what the team agrees to, so that that team is now empowered to provide the services for your child. Is there a hierarchy? Is there someone in the system with a higher rank and more authority? If one person can't or won't help you, who's the next person in line who might be able to help you? It's also helpful to know if the staff are public, nonprofit, or private employees, so you can understand their role and the rules of the system. You can ask who funds the agency or service. For example, related service providers, physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, are not sometimes direct employees of the school. They can be employees of another nonprofit or private organization. To find a person's name, you can ask for a list. You can look for the list on the website. You can check the Code of Conduct book. And you can obviously ask TIC again. You also want to build good relationships. Take the time to build good relationships before anything adversarial develops for you or your child. Ask questions, be polite and courteous, and let the players know you and you get to know the players. I'm going to talk a little bit about the chain of command that we talked about. It's important that you follow the hierarchy of the school system in the order that it is. If you skip all the way to, for example, the state director for special education with an issue, they are going to go straight to the principal, who is going to go to the principal. They're going to follow on down the line. And sometimes when you have a disagreement, if you can resolve it at the lower levels, that is the most effective way. You maintain good relationships and you get the best results because those people are closest to your child. So you want to work your way up the ladder. Start with a teacher. Move on to the educational diagnostician and the school principal. If you're not getting the results that you want or you're still in disagreement, then you can move on outside of the school to the district and ultimately to the state. It's important also when you're following this hierarchy to put everything in writing. And here are some tips for putting things in writing. There is a saying in advocacy circles that if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. So you can send letters, and you can also confirm phone conversations by sending an email and saying, this is what we talked about, please confirm that this is your understanding. You can use a letter or an email to make a request, ask for clarification, clarify what you want to say, ask for a decision, ask for an action item with a deadline, say thank you, and to document the verbal discussion. So your letter should be change. Again, know the key player and address your letter to the key player. Always date and sign. You want to focus on one or two issues and keep, especially looking at email on their cell phones, there's only so much screen space. So you really want to keep that message very short and get what you want, the primary thing that you want out there in the first few sentences. A deadline if a reply is requested, and give them your contact information. And always, always keep a copy for yourself. The next skill is knowing your rights and responsibilities. You can learn your rights and responsibilities by contacting PIC to decode the law for you, or to point out where in the law certain things are stated. Obviously, you can read websites. Ask how services are funded. And when a school tells you this is our policy or this is our practice, ask to see their written policy. Always ask questions, and then you can join some kind of a support group. Why is it important to know your rights and responsibilities? Knowing who's in charge is not enough. Parents need to know the rules of the game too. Parents need to participate from a position of knowledge as much as possible. Each agency or service provider has some guidelines on how they work. They have procedures, they have policies, and sometimes laws and regulations. And you should ask where you can find these in writing. Read the agency's website. Read the school code of conduct. Find their funding sources. There's a direct link between how an agency or service is funded and your rights and responsibilities. If agencies are funded by the public, they're required to follow certain laws, not just policies. Publicly funded systems are supported by taxes and include public schools, government, and government agencies. This is particularly important if your child has a Section 504 accommodation plan, or if you're seeking some kind of accommodations for your child. You can ask questions. It's okay to ask questions like, who's coordinating this? What's the backup plan? Where is the funding coming from to do this? And who's responsible? And of course, when is this going to be done? The next skill is becoming well organized. Most agencies and services require documents, records, so be well prepared to organize what you have. You never know what you might need in the future. PIC provides a workshop on organizing your special education records. So keep an eye on the website, on our PIC website, for when that workshop comes up, and we do encourage you to join that. You want to keep records. You can separate your records by service or agency. Keep your written correspondences, your emails, and the responses that you get from the schools and from other organizations that you ask questions from. Keep a list of names and contact numbers for everyone who you deal with. When you go to a meeting, bring all the records from your file or folder and keep them in order by date so that you can easily find what you need. One parent gave an example of they were reviewing their child's speech capabilities, and she was the only one who had a previous speech evaluation and could provide that to the team. So she was being an active and important participant on her child's team by bringing that information to the table. Put everything in writing. If you're not comfortable taking notes, bring someone with you to do this. It's always best to get as many things in writing as possible. And again, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So you do want to keep copies of letters and emails. If someone tells you something in a hallway conversation or on the phone, you can always confirm it by sending them an email. Also keep a phone log of when you talked to somebody and what you decided and what you discussed. Keep a meeting notebook that includes when you met with people and what you discussed. Communication is extremely important in working with your school to provide a more effective education for your child. So the important thing to remember is that the only person you have the power to change is yourself. It's about you and not them. So the way that you talk to others has a direct relationship in how you interact, how they interact with you, and perhaps the services that your child will receive. You really want to watch your emotions, and as a parent, it's very easy for our emotions to get the better of us sometimes. And ask yourself, will this get what my child needs today as well as tomorrow? The power that we talked about earlier is not the same as aggression. If you behave with anger, others will only remember that you were angry, not that you actually had some good and valid points and valid requests for your child. So here are some tips that can really make a difference when you're advocating for your child. You want to keep your eyes on the prize. And the prize is effective service for your child with a disability. The focus should always be on the child and what the child needs. Not what you need necessarily, but what your child needs. You want to listen and ask questions. Listening gives you information that you need. Listen to see if the speaker is sharing their opinion or if they're sharing facts. A fact will always have data and records to back it up, and decisions should be based on facts. So as often as you can, take the decision back to what does the data say? What evidence do you have that makes you think my child is doing what they are doing? Also, check to make sure you understand what the other person is saying. Repeat it. You might say, this is what I think you heard saying. Is this correct? Also, you can ask them to tell you more. Don't be afraid to say you don't understand. Have them explain what they really mean. You want to focus on the needs of the child, not the solution you want. Your biggest contribution as a parent is going to be to emphasize what your child needs. The professionals may have other tools in their toolkit to come up with a solution on how to meet your child's need, and you should be open to trying those things. Use data again and fact instead of opinions about what your child needs. Use data from professionals. Use data from evaluations. Use data from your child's tests and your child's educational records. You also want to prioritize your child's needs. Practically, there's only so much your child can work on, and there's only so much that can be done in a day. So think about what do you think is most important for your child and for your child's future, and prioritize those. Turn negatives into needs. This can be a very strong skill. If someone says your child's disruptive, for example, you need to find out what that means. You can ask, when does my child do this? How often? What specifically does my child do? Who does my child disrupt? Knowing the answers to these questions will determine what actually can be done about the problem. You can ask who, what, where, and how questions. You need to ask these questions in a diplomatic way. You don't want to question someone's motivation. You just want to ask questions to get more information so that you can problem solve together to find solutions. Here are some tips for good communication at a meeting. At a meeting, you really want to work on speaking clearly. Be as clear and direct as possible so other people will understand what you want to say. Give specific examples if you can. Write things down if you're not comfortable talking in front of 6 or 7 other people. Write things down and read from your statement. Instead of saying something like she always has a stomachache, you could say she always has a stomachache when she gets home from school. And when you're making a suggestion on something that might help, you might want to also describe why you think that thing will help. As you're speaking, you do want to avoid making people feel defensive. In an IEP meeting, for example, you have your child's special education teacher and their general education teacher and the principal of the school all in one room. The teachers report directly to the principal. So you want to be very careful that you don't make the teacher look like they don't know how to do their job in front of their boss. So you want to speak in a way that doesn't appear to be criticizing. You want to give positive feedback and praise as much as you can, and help people to listen to what you have to say. You want to listen and ask and rephrase to be sure you understand what's said. You want to make sure you say thank you. People have taken a lot of time to come together to talk about your child. And then you also want to summarize what you and others have said to be sure that you understand and the whole team understands what's been said. As much as possible, you want to involve your child in meetings. As your child grows older, and certainly when they get to adulthood, they are going to be advocating for themselves. And the sooner that they can get ready to speak up on their own behalf, the more successful they will be as an adult. Our final skill number 6, is knowing how to resolve disagreements. As a parent, you may agree or disagree with decisions made by an agency or a service provider. You need to know the rules of the game, including how disagreements are settled. There's many ways to resolve disagreements, and it's best to use informal means. Those means will make sure that you resolve the disagreement quickly and most quickly. So the best informal process is to talk to people first. Sometimes it's just a miscommunication or a misunderstanding. To use resources such as PIC, we will help you know your rights in a particular situation and know what questions to ask to get information and try and come to an agreement. Piece of the school, know what it says in the Code of Conduct. Talk with your child about them so that your child understands what the Code of Conduct says. Sometimes your child will see other children breaking the Code of Conduct and they don't punish for it, but when your child tries to do it, they would get punished for it. They need to understand what the rules are, and they need to understand that they need to follow the rules regardless of what other students do. You need to be able to talk the language of the school. You can disagree without being disagreeable. You can say that you want to continue to work together to benefit your child, and you don't want this disagreement to interfere with that. Don't be afraid of apologizing if something happened, and accept other people's apologies as well. Remember that no one has all the answers, so you want to try and approach a disagreement as a problem that you're trying to solve together with the people who are helping your child. Make sure that your facts are accurate. You also want to choose your battles. There's a lot of things that could be improved in life. We all have things that we can improve to make us. But at the end of the day, we need to decide what is going to have an impact on my child. What does my child need at this moment? And is it worth me fighting this battle? Or should I go ahead and save my energy for something that's more important for my child and my child? If the informal processes don't work for you, then there are formal processes. For those students who receive special education services, there are procedural safeguards. procedural safeguards for students who are protected under the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And there are also procedural safeguards for students who receive Section 504 accommodation plans. So you want to get to know what your procedural safeguards are. For those students who do not receive special education services, there are appeals and there are grievance procedures. So you want to get to know what those are, and those are generally recorded in the school code of conduct. Formal procedures for students receiving special education services include mediation, where a third party speaks with you and your school and you try and come up with an agreement. They include state complaints for instances when the school does not follow what is stated in the law or in the child's IEP. And then there is the due process process. The only person that you can change is you. No matter how much you wish the other person would learn some of these skills, you can't force that to happen. But you do have the power to change and grow yourself. As Helen Keller said, I'm only one, but still I am one. I cannot, still I can do something. I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. Thank you for listening to this webinar. Please do contact us if you have any questions or need advice. And please join us for other workshops and webinars as posted on our website, Facebook, Twitter, and weekly e-newsletters. Many thanks from Pick.